Hey everybody, welcome back to Konversation with me, Rick.
And me, Nain.
And this young man who looks like he's a wizard from one of those Tolkien stories is Jason
Jones.
You like that? Like, I forgot his last name.
The only Jones I know is me and Mrs. Jones.
Me and Mrs. Jones.
That
was a bad thing with you. I remember. Yeah. How much did that cost you with that?
You know what? We settled out of court, but everything turned out okay.
That's good.
He's here today, so
There you go.
That shows how positive we've
Isn't he the ex-husband of Mrs. Jones? He's here to kick your ass. Listen, folks, I want you to understand this is a special treat for us because we've only met him one time before, and that was at a gathering, a secret gathering that we're not supposed to talk about.
That we're
at all.
Never happened.
Never happened.
Yeah.
No.
But we were there. But we weren't.
In spirit.
And I found him fascinating because
the beard.
It really is. It really is.
It brings you in.
It's that Gandalf. Look.
There you go.
Really? You go Gandalf? I'm thinking Viking.
Wizard. No, wizard.
Wizard?
There's no tattoos. Come on. What kind? Oh, now he pulls out.
You didn't see the tattoo? Oh my god, you don't pay attention.
Dude, I don't.
Dude, he has like axe blisters.
Axe blisters. So the other fascinating thing about Mr. Jones here that I found is that he doesn't do just one particular style. And that's what I want to start with. Let's start with that. How many different styles do you actually work on? Well, what's the first one you did?
Well, my very, very, very first style, and I would say that's my base, would be Kempo. Kempo. I came from early on, kind of in the 90s, right? You remember Jeff Speakman, Perfect Weapon, all that stuff. Of
course.
That movie came out. I was already like a martial arts buff. Like I loved all the Shaw Brothers stuff, Jackie Chan, all that.
The kung fu stuff.
Absolutely, right?
I mean, and
you got to remember too. This in the 90s. It's like pre-UFC.
Yeah.
Because after UFC hit, all of a sudden everybody's like,
oh yeah, we're not doing the kung fu
that stuff isn't working anymore.
Yeah.
We need to look better,
right? But so. I initially started with American Kempo at Parker's System. But only for like a few months. Me and my brother went there, and they it was an excellent system, excellent school. Everything's broken down, everything's cool. But at that point in time, you got to remember I was probably like 18, 19, something like that.
Oh, you started late.
Yeah, I actually did. I mean, I learned a little bit when I was like a little kid. My dad would throw us around because he was learning judo at the junior college.
Oh, there you go.
And I need someone to practice with.
Boy, you're tall. Then a little bit of wrestling in high school. But I mean, the other thing too is being, I was in bands. I was playing music. That was kind of
and we're going to get to that in a little bit because this guy's a crazy band guy.
But not anymore. But I, about right after high school, I was like, okay, I'd been doing the band thing for a while, been doing that sort of thing, and I was like, I need to do something else. And a buddy of mine had started at a more Shoshu school. It's a kind of a local Kempo Kung Fu kind of style.
Wow. Yeah.
And he would come over, and I'd been in bands with him, known him forever. And he would, you got to remember, he was fresh, yellow belt, white belt material. And he's like, no, check this out.
Yeah,
and we were like,
show off all the things he knows, right?
Right. And then I'm like, you know what? That is kind of cool. And when he started getting better, we kind of took notice, and we're like, okay, we got to do something too.
That's funny.
So I went to not his school, but I went to another school.
A rival school.
Because you can't.
You can't.
If you're going to beat up your buddy, you can't be doing the same style.
Right. See, I know that for sure.
Right. But anyways, did that for a minute, but they were and again, you got to remember this is the 90s. They were really big on contracts.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've been around. Yeah,
you sign up for $49.95, you get a gi plus,
And then after about 2 months, you're like, okay, now sign on the dotted line, and you're paying us $200 a month, and back then I honestly just did not have that.
Right.
And the idea of being stuck doing that for a year or more.
It's worse than 24-hour non-hours.
That was they were just and this is in the 90s.
Wow.
This became the
McDonald's.
I think it's where it started.
Yeah.
At that point, it was you had guys that there weren't, again, I grew up in Turlock, which is kind of a small, like, rural, like, farming community. You had Moors. You had about 6 Taekwondo schools.
Of course.
Like, they were everywhere.
Yeah, Taekwondo was big.
Then you had, like, the Kempo school, which was like, oh, yeah, we're going to go do that because it was obviously different than what everybody else was doing.
Right.
And again, though, at that, even at that early point, I did go take a Taekwondo lesson that was a free lesson because they were right around the corner of my house. And I wanted to see what it was.
Right.
Best of the Best had came out. You know? Oh, yeah, that's me. I'll pull out all the old stuff.
No, I was just recently reviewing all those titles too.
Yeah.
I was like, I haven't seen
man.
this in years. I haven't seen this
Philip
in
Reed,
years.
though, was a legit martial artist.
Well, his
but-
entire family.
Yeah, no, they're both.
Yeah.
Yeah, him and his brothers.
Yeah,
and,
and the father.
I didn't know anything.
Yeah,
about
the father was excellent as
It's
well.
not June Reed, is it?
No, June Reed's the brother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
June
but
Reed's
those cats were like legit.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
And also at the time too, you got to remember, like, I'm a taller dude. I'm about 6'2" ish.
Right. You had that lanky.
And so
looking
that
kid.
idea of like, oh, I could just kick people.
Yeah.
It sounded legit.
I have the reach.
I have it. And my younger brother, who is 2 years younger than me, but
And 2 feet shorter?
no, actually the other way.
Really?
Yeah, he's 6'9".
Jesus.
Yeah, he is a big dude. Like, for real's big dude. And that's all. We'll go into stuff with that later. But
Just imagine. Look, little brother.
well, that's kind of what happened too. Is like there was one day me and my brother were walking through the mall with my mom, and my mom goes, "Jason, Steven's taller than you now." And I go, "No, he's." Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
I go,
Okay.
all right. Okay. Take him out at the knees.
So I'll tell you something that's funny. You talk about Kempo.
Yes.
That's the first style that I jumped into.
And honestly, I kind of view Kempo as a really good gateway martial art.
Finally, somebody who says it right, because you are exactly right.
It is.
It wasn't the one you were going to stay at forever.
No,
Well,
but
It's the one that you. Well, no, it gave you all the good basics.
Well, and that's the thing is like the refinement of basics in that system, or even almost any Kempo style.
Yeah.
Even if so, because you have several and they're all related as long as they're not from like mainland Japan.
Okay.
Right.
Most of them that you see here in the U.S. are some way or another connected to William Chow and James Matosi.
Right.
And so what you end up with are systems that are kind of like brother and sister systems, or then again downline stuff.
Well, then
But
you
that's
also had the Hawaiian touch to the
well,
Kempo.
and that's the other thing too. And so with Kempo, it came, and this is my thought is that it came from that Okinawa,
Correct.
Japan kind of play, went to Hawaii,
Yep.
met a bunch of people who, at first it was taught in like a Danzanryu dojo. And,
Yes.
and that blended in. The pressure point stuff was already kind of there, but then you started like seeing guys using joint locks and stuff. So Kempo
Right.
Jiu-Jitsu was the thing. And then when Chow got a hold of it, he really emphasized like the Chinese idea behind it.
Right.
And the Chinese, it's circular movement.
So I'll tell you something that you
Eyes.
probably don't realize, because you got into it in the 90s, right?
Yes, sir.
I was in it in the 80s.
Sure.
It was totally different.
I believe it.
Yeah, it wasn't like what you're describing, because back then everything was much more Okinawan-ish.
Well,
Okay.
that's the thing too,
Yeah.
is like there's so many
It's more
sub-flavors.
traditional. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I agree.
And
my instructor was Filipino.
Yeah. Well, and that's
Yeah.
and actually I want to get to that with you guys too. Is one of the, and like I was saying, gateway is a lot of the any Kaju guy that you meet, almost every single one of them has some sort of Filipino martial arts background. Correct?
Oh yes.
Correct?
Yeah.
Any guy who does like American Kempo or anything like that, they are a little stricter to like staying true to like
True,
partners thing. But a lot of them have some form of stick work that they have at
Yes.
least dabbled in and kind of like incorporated.
Especially if they're from Hawaii.
And so, especially like guys who do like the Cha 3 styles and stuff,
Right.
they have guys who are, and how many Kachikimbo guys have you guys interviewed?
Right.
And I know because I've been watching,
We can't lie.
who are also like grandmasters of Filipino arts.
There are two right outside.
Or look at Rona Stellar,
Yeah.
Dave Amasucci.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ted Sotelo was an amazing Filipino martial artist.
Right.
And you have it kind of
Comes around.
really comes around. But that's also because I believe, whereas like if you take a real hard style system, something like Shotokan or something like that, the idea of the circular movement, the counter for counter, the
flowing aspect.
the flowing, the blending, like
Yes.
it's not as, they're more into linear strict.
Right.
I had also taken Shorin Ryu, and you're right.
Yeah.
Talk about just hard. I mean,
Just strict, just
Yeah.
straight. And then what's funny is, also most of the best lessons I've ever got in Filipino martial arts were in a backyard or a garage.
That's kind of the staple.
I mean, isn't it though?
if it's a good school, that's where it is.
And usually, a lot of times it's not even a school. It's just a
no.
guy that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The school is the backyard.
Yeah. It's where we do it, and then we eat lumpia.
Yeah.
But so I went from the American Kempo, and I moved to Ceres, which is real close, but
Right.
there was right there, like about 5 minutes from my house, a guy that was teaching. It was Chinese American martial arts, and I was like, "So
Chinese
what does that? What does
What
that mean?
is
You
that
have to be
really?
a Chinese American to like?"
what is
And
it?
he was a plumber, and
Was he Italian too?
no,
Did he have the mustache and the
no, but he did have the belly.
Yeah.
But he was also a Vietnam vet and like a lot of cool stuff. And just he had lived in Denair and was like this like kind of rough dude.
Right.
When
like that-
he
that-
liked to hit you,
Oh.
and that was the thing. And coming from my upbringing, just that idea of like, oh, you're gonna show me how this actually works because and I know it works because
I felt it.
I felt it, and now I'm on the ground.
And that's the only way he likes to learn from me.
Sure.
If I tell him something, he won't believe it until I actually do it and throw him on the ground or something.
pain makes
It's-
believers of us all.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things like, okay, that sounds cool. I'm not sure how it would work. All right, screw it. Do it. And then
Right,
it happens.
right.
You're like, oh, now
Yeah.
it makes sense.
So-
and it's totally clear.
Yeah, that's one of the problems is as martial artists, especially guys who are a little bit more like nuts.
Folks, we have a lot of flies in the
yeah.
I think
It's giving us training.
I think it's actually just the one that's messing with us on purpose. I don't know
I think
which
it-
one of you pissed it off, but it has a vendetta against us.
probably the bearded guy.
Is it-
Right.
Yeah.
He's looking for something in here.
Crumbs.
Right. Turkey leg hidden in there. But so I learned from this guy. His name is Sifu Pat Belevins. He was
Was he Chinese?
no.
Or
He-
American?
He was
Belevins, come on, man. Belevins.
Belevins. I believe it's like Irish.
Really?
Yeah, but so
Oh, wow, okay.
he actually gave us a really good start because a lot of what we did, it was a really weird mix because he had originally been a more Shoshu guy back in like the early 80s.
Right.
Left them right around the time he got his black belt because of whatever, and then went to the Tracy system. And you gotta, so at that point in time too, the Tracys were really smart with their marketing because they were about the only guys that were doing distance learning.
Oh, okay.
And there was no YouTube, there was no anything like that where you could like, Skype with somebody.
Kids, this is the 90s, back in the Stone Age.
Oh no!
before-
It was all VHS. I mean, it wasn't even DVDs. It was VHS.
VHS.
And those VHS,
And then you would send it back to
VHS
them
tapes were the worst things to watch.
Oh,
'cause
yeah,
you did
'cause
not learn school.
You were just like,
What?
what?
Yeah.
But so he kind of put those together, and then
Yeah.
he also started studying under a woman named Chu Ying Feng, and she was a competitor from the Chinese, like the straight like China proper,
Right.
wushu team that had like defected and immigrated over here.
Oh, I was gonna say, communism told you to fight. You better fight.
Well, and that they actually do that. They actually no, they
Yeah, you
literally
have to
like
join in
they
for it, yeah.
script they will
Oh, wow.
they basically
They force it, yeah.
like if you're
Conscribed.
like, yeah, well, like Jet Li,
Yeah.
Yeah.
he
You have
was
to.
literally adopted by the school, and him and a bunch of that's what they did. It was and
No wonder he was a champion at 11.
well, and that's exactly right. And so
Yeah.
she was also one of his classmates or something along those lines, or competed against him.
Right.
Wow.
And so she showed him a lot of Chinese forms.
Okay.
Hungar, tiger and crane, wall boxing. Like, believe it or not, when I was back then, I could do like tornado kicks and all that fun stuff, and it looked great.
Really?
Felt great. My brother was even scarier because he was 6'9", doing
And-
like these like southern boxing, like. But what that did too was
I can't get that out of my head. I'm sorry.
those styles, their mobility is ridiculous.
Right.
Because there is a lot of movement. Even though you're never in a real fight ever going to hold like a bow stance
Right.
or anything,
Right.
just the ability to like coordinate striking and hitting, moving your feet at the same time.
Yeah, you start on one end of the mat
And
you
you're
end up
on the other
side,
end.
and you come back.
Yeah,
then-
and it's fast
I've
and it's
seen it, yeah.
intense and it's the way. You know,
crazy.
but the other factor that we had too was that he just had us spar all the time.
Wow.
Like, I mean, I might as well had like, we had a tub of Tiger Balm, at
Right.
home. Like a literal tub of Tiger Balm and Ditta Jows and stuff like that because
You can make your own juice.
not back then,
Oh,
but it was one of
Eventually
those
he
things.
did, yeah.
One of those things of like we would come home just beat to crap because
Haggard.
and my sparring partner for the most part was my younger brother, who again, like I was saying, is like 6'9",
yeah.
and had a good probably 40 pounds on me, and
F out of here. For
well,
real?
not only
40
that,
pounds.
not only that though, he moves really, really well. Not like you would expect a dude
Right, to be that big.
to be that big to move.
Wow.
So at that point, we had kind of a mixed system, and then my Sifu had right before I had joined, started under Jeff Speakman.
Okay.
And this is before Kempo 5.0 or anything like that. It was literally like
when
he
did
had
they
just
start
kind of
putting numbers to the
The
damn
precursor, yeah.
well, Speakman did something that was kind of interesting. Is he added a lot of Brazilian jiu-jitsu type
Right.
stuff, which is something that's sorely lacking in a lot of styles.
Mm.
But here's the thing that too, it's Brazilian jiu-jitsu style positioning, and like you get familiar with the guard and stuff like that, but you're still doing that Kempo idea of hitting.
Okay.
Which eventually we'll get to. Like when you train stand up and you just kind of train straight jujitsu, you get in a fight and standing up, you're doing your thing, you know what you're doing, and you hit the ground, and all of a sudden all that like striking and stuff goes out the window because you
Right,
only
because you
trained.
can't- only one way or the other.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's like
one or the other.
Your
Yeah.
brain switches.
basically, yeah.
Huh.
You
But-
know, I find this interesting because one of our good friends, Mickey, put up posted a video about this Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy who got beat up and almost nearly died.
Sure.
And you gotta wonder, because I guess the topic was that how good are you really, and and how much of it do you really kind of psych yourself out to see that you're actually not as good as you think you are, but because of the way you're trained, you have to say, "Oh, I'm my system" or whatever.
The ego. The
Yeah,
ego
yeah,
is
I mean,
is a
it's a killer.
it's a killer.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and I'll be first. That was one of my things. Is so. First, really big humbling, and it's actually while I'm still at that same school, was my Sifu at the time, because in Kempo they started working like stick technique, like a stick form for the black belts and stuff at that level, and
That's right.
And so he had he had one of his black belts that had started training in the Cuerdas under Bill Foster and Makia Foster.
Oh.
And so he brought them to the school, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to do this?" And at that time, I had already started to learn who Danny Inosanto was.
Right.
I had seen The Perfect Weapon, which had sticks in it.
And you're like, okay.
That was a pretty scene.
It really was. Like the couch thing, I still think is just badass. My wife gets pissed off when I do that.
By the way, we're going to have an
Love you, Trish.
episode called The Spouses of Martial Artists.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
We'd
we
love
need
to
your
have your
wife to
wife
come
on,
on.
yeah.
Because it sounds like she's going to have a lot to say.
I'm sure she does.
Okay.
Yeah, should we do a shout out to was it Resin? What's her name?
Resin Hag, yeah.
Resin Hag.
Yeah, Trisha Jones.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's my
check out that
beloved.
stuff. Some real cool stuff on there. I was looking at it earlier.
Awesome.
And if you
Yeah.
act
Oh, I
now,
got some stuff for
there's
you
a
guys.
awesome.
2% discount.
2%.
Because I don't want your wife to get mad at me. She
Oh, no, no, no.
I've seen some of the shit she
Oh,
makes.
dude,
Like, it would kill me.
yeah.
They're pretty cool. And so at that time, he brought actual Filipino martial artists in. Which, like, again, I showed up to my first class full gi,
Yeah.
and they are literally like in like sneakers and shoes, looking
Yeah,
like,
that's us.
and I'm like, oh, I'm overdressed.
I didn't get a shirt that had our logo on it until like months after. I just showed up in
Yeah.
jeans and whatever the hell I was wearing.
But when you're coming from like this, like bow
Traditional,
in, bow
yeah.
out,
Yeah,
like
forget that
everything,
anymore.
like you're when you're there, you're like there.